Hi, this is State Rep Janet Cruz, and you're watching Tampa Bay Community Network.
Hi, I'm Bill Hodges, and this is Spotlight on Government. And today we have Janet Cruz, District 62, Florida House of Representatives.
That's right.
Here visiting with us.
I'm glad to be here.
I am excited to have you. I know this is an extremely busy time for everybody in the legislature. And I appreciate you taking time to come out and talk with us.
As of tomorrow, Tuesday, we are a week away from elections that will decide a great deal in our state. But that's another show, isn't it?
You know, it amazes me that anybody in their right mind would run for one of these jobs. Now that isn't, I'm not casting inferences here, but really $29,000 a year, not part-time, that's $29,000 a year. It's a full-time job.
It is a full-time job. And I feel for some of those legislators, there are lots of young men and young women in the legislature that are still working on supporting families and working full-time jobs. I do this job full-time, but it is a part-time job with what the legislature considers part-time pay.
It seems difficult for me, but you mentioned families, and families are very important because it's not just you running for office, it's the entire family, correct?
It is indeed the entire family, and it is a commitment that one must be sure that they have a spouse that is completely supportive. Remember that I'm in Tallahassee 2 months of the year full-time, and then we have committee weeks. So there are several weeks throughout the year that I'm back and forth to Tallahassee. So you have to have a spouse, I think, that's pretty secure in themselves and understands the awesome responsibility of serving in the House of Representatives.
Mind if I asked you about your spouse? And by the way,
no, please do.
First of all, I don't want any phone calls. If this was a man sitting here, I'd ask the same question.
Exactly. Thank you. That's fine. My husband is Steve Rifkin, Dr. Stephen Rifkin, and he is the love of my life. I absolutely adore him, and I'm thankful to him that he provides me the support that I need to do this job and do it well. Steve is a nephrologist, that's a kidney doctor, and he has been the chief of staff at Tampa General Hospital for nephrology, and he's very proud, very, very proud of the work that he's done and proud of the way he's seen Tampa General grow and the fact that it's a world-class facility now. Very proud to be part of that.
Been in there twice this year.
Oh dear.
And I have to tell you, they are fabulous. They treated my
work.
wife like gold while we were there. The food service, when you take off the lid, you're always delighted.
Wow.
Really.
Who could say that about hospital food?
Really.
That's great. That's
I
really
love
great.
that, and it's really nice that he is part of that organization because they just seem to draw the best people.
Well, he graduated from, he did his residency at Ohio State, and he wanted...
I'll forgive him for that.
Okay. Uh-oh. I will tell him that. But he wanted to come to Tampa when he graduated because they were starting up the medical school, and he wanted to be part of that. So he was part of the original staff, then went into private practice, and now has come full circle and is semi-retired and is working back at the medical school, teaching and rounding with those fellows of nephrology that are learning.
It's so much fun to give back. I do a lot of that myself now.
Yeah.
Again, getting towards the end of my career and wanting to pay back all the people who reached out and helped me along the way. I'm a professional speaker, and I had great luck with a guy named Ira Hayes, who was top speaker, Zig Ziglar, Cabot Roberts. All these people reached down to this kid and lifted him up. And it's kind of fun now, and I understand what your husband's doing and what you do, reaching down. What do you think was the most important things that happened in the state legislature last year, in the last session, and what would you have liked to seen happen that didn't happen?
Well, I think that that's really where I began. I think what didn't happen in the legislature is the most important thing that didn't happen, and that was that we did not expand health care coverage for working class families. 1 in 5 Floridians, I'm sorry, is uninsured, but almost 5,800, I think the number is to be correct, 5,800 die every year because they don't have coverage. I spoke not long ago to a young guy who worked at Amscot, and he had his children covered under the Healthy Children program, but he couldn't afford the health care coverage. The premium for himself was somewhere, I think, at about $300, $350 a month. And he said, Rep. Cruz, I can make a decision to buy groceries, buy gas, pay rent, or have health insurance. Something's got to give. And what I do without is health insurance so that I can take care of my family and work and get to work. So it's a sad situation when we have a program that is available, that we could draw down federal dollars and cover more people in our state, but our legislature dug their heels in and refused to accept the federal money so that we could cover working class families. Again, I'm talking about this gentleman and a single mom that works at McDonald's or works at anywhere at a minimum wage job. They simply can't afford health care coverage, and we have the ability, or we would have the ability to help them, and to me that was very disappointing.
It amazes me, we have all the money in the world to go bomb parts of the world, but not to provide health care for the people who live here. Somehow there's a dichotomy there that I can't bridge in my mind.
And it's a federal tax dollar that we're paying, and by not accepting the money, we simply become what I call a donor state, because our money goes to another state to insure their folks.
So what would you like to see happen?
I would like to see us draw down those federal dollars, expand the coverage of health care coverage for working families.
Isn't there some problem with a cutoff or a time period that the federal dollars are only going to go so long, and then if we accept the program, we have to keep it up in the future?
Well, after a certain amount of time, there will be a percentage that the state will have to contribute. So that's the concern. But even if we took the money for 2 or 3 years and covered people who didn't have insurance, wouldn't that be better than nothing at all? And this is a point I like to tell people too, is that by not insuring people, where do you think these folks go for their health care coverage when they're not well?
They go to the emergency room, and
Exactly.
the taxpayer pays for it anyway. That's
right.
what I don't understand.
And the taxpayer and we as individuals pay for it because as those premiums rise and as those costs rise, they get transferred onto our premiums. You know, the cost just gets shifted back to us. So we're paying our federal taxes and not drawing down those federal dollars. And we're also paying higher premiums in our insurance premiums because healthcare cost is rising, because people are using the emergency rooms like they would
Which is the most
an
expensive
urgent care
way
center. Absolutely.
to give care. Just boggles my mind. I don't understand. Of course, I'm a great proponent of universal health care, and I will say that right off the bat. So if I'm not arguing with her on this, it's because I believe that we should give health care to every man, woman, and child in the United States.
I agree. I mean, honestly, we shouldn't think of health care as a privilege. Health care is a right. This is America, one of the most prosperous countries in the world. We should at least be able to offer some form of health care coverage to folks.
I am much more likely to die from some kind of disease here in the United States than I am for some terrorist coming over from Afghanistan.
I agree.
So to me, the balance is there. Let's go on to some of the other things that you talked about. One of the things was money coming back from federal programs and from the state. Let's talk about some of the money that's come back from Tallahassee to Hillsborough County, because that's where I really am focused on, Hillsborough County, where I live.
Well, and that's what I think most people want to know. I mean, we have a budget that is $77.1 billion that we collect through our taxes and our sales taxes, and this money is money that we collect to run the state, but what does that really mean to people? $77.1 billion is just a number that we can't wrap our head around.
If you told me there are 77.1 billion stones in the Rocky Mountains, I still couldn't picture the mountain.
Right, it's a lot of money, we know that, but how did some of that translate to Tampa in dollars for my district? I call it dollars for my district. And there was $24 million for the Tampa International Airport expansion. What does that mean to us? That means that Tampa International will now build a people mover that will move folks headed for their rental car. They'll move on a people mover to a rental car facility that will be efficient. All the rental cars will be in one place. They'll be parked out of the airport and in this rental car center.
Should open up some short-term parking too.
Yes, it should open up some parking and allow for some expansion of the airport. And I think you and I both agree that we have a love of Tampa International Airport, and the work that they're doing there is fantastic. But there's an expansion that's planned, and it begins with moving the rental cars off out of the main terminal and off to a remote site that will be, have you parked at the economy parking lot at the airport?
Oh, yes.
It's terrific. And I think that's what we'll see with the rental car facility. It will be a people mover that will get you there, and it won't be far. It'll kind of be like the economy lot, but another very efficient step for Tampa International Airport.
Phyllis and I moved here because of that airport.
It's the best.
I travel all over the world speaking, and that airport's above all. I can't think of another airport that I go through that is people-friendly as this one is. Yep. The management there is outstanding.
When I talk to people and tell them I'm from Tampa, they say a couple of things. Love Tampa International Airport. And the next thing they say is love Burns Steakhouse. But they all talk about our airport. If
I can just keep from going to St. Petersburg.
Exactly. I did it once. I did it one time, and I caught that wrong lane early on. And instead, it was about sunset. I was coming in. It was about sunset, and rather than be angry and frustrated with myself, I said, okay, it's sunset. I rolled down all the windows in the car, opened up the sunroof, blasted the music, and just rode across the bridge, enjoyed the ride, and rode back and enjoyed it again. I said, no sense in being angry, just let me enjoy this beautiful ride.
And that's the one thing, if they could just make sure that if they have flashing lights or something, because many, many people make that and go across, although it is a pretty ride, as you put it.
It's pretty. I mean, it's
What
frustrating.
other dollars did we get?
We got $58 million for Hillsborough Community College, allowing for expansions and scholarship programs and just overall operation fund. $51 million for the Tampa Port, which allows for some port expansion that they're working on. That's what that means to us. $557 million for USF and for Moffitt Cancer Center, and we know what that means. I mean, I have been a huge proponent of Moffitt Cancer Center. I love the work that they do, but some of that $557 million means increased research, more access to the facility, more jobs, more services at Moffitt. Moffitt continues to be a world-class facility. People don't come from just all over the state to access the services of Moffitt. They come from all over the country, and many from out of the country to access the services. We have an amazing facility at Moffitt Cancer Center, and as long as I'm a legislator, I will continue to fight for those dollars for Moffitt and USF.
I think it's extremely important. I think almost everybody in Hillsborough County can, on their hands, count friends, relatives, loved ones that have been impacted by the people at Moffitt.
Mm-hmm. I have so many friends that have been taken great care of at Moffitt Cancer Center. And also I want to mention something right in my district, and that's $6 million for the Tampa Jewish Community Center. And I don't know if many people know this, but the old Fort Homer Hesterly Armory has been bought by the Jewish Community Center, by the JCC. And their plan is to build a community center there and revitalize that area, which is a much needed revitalization right there on Howard, between Howard and Armenia, almost at the interstate. And most people in Tampa remember that armory for so many different events that took place there, dances and the Latin American Fiesta, and a lot of people remember it for the Tuesday night wrestling that they used to have wrestling at the armory, but it's been closed and it's kind of in a sad state. And so with this money and the money that the Jewish community is raising, we're going to revitalize that center and create a community-based, focused area for folks to come to for both athletics and meetings and
So
daycare.
this is for everybody, not just Jewish?
It's for everybody. And they really, the Jewish community wants to make sure they can convey that message to everyone, that this center will be a community center for everyone. They'll have, I think, a preschool program that will encourage the kids in the neighborhood to come and be part of the center. They'll have a community room, and they'll have another room that will be available for rentals and events. So it's going to be really, really terrific.
I guess when you said the Jewish Community Center, my flag went up because I'm a great proponent of the division of church and state. Mm-hmm. And having that money go into if it's not a religious center, that's a different story.
Right.
That's why I wanted to clarify.
It'll be a community center. The land was purchased by the Jewish, not the Jewish Federation, but the JCC. But this will be a community center that will be open and available to all. It will revitalize that area.
It's nice when one group at least takes the lead.
It is indeed.
And gets something going.
And there were, there were a few other groups that tried and proposed and worked on taking that building and creating some different things, but it just didn't happen. They may have fallen because of the recession, but I'm just very happy to see that they've taken the lead on this, and they're going to create a great community center for all of us.
In most instances across the nation, I've watched when the Jewish people take on some task, it gets done.
Yeah.
It gets done. And
They're
I think
a hardworking
yeah.
bunch of folks.
Speaking of working,
yes.
Jobs. Let's talk jobs.
Well, let's talk
Everybody wants to talk jobs, but nobody has anything to tell me about them. So
well,
let's talk about jobs.
I can tell you, when someone says they put their efforts where their mouth is, I can tell you that I have done that. And one aspect of my dedication to this position is that I promised people when I was running the very first time, when I was knocking on doors, and that was, 4 years ago, when we had a very different economy, and everyone said, my husband's out of work, we've closed a business, we've always been business owners, but we don't have any jobs, and my daughter's out of work, please help my husband, my daughter, my son. So when I went to Tallahassee, I realized because of the bad economy, I promised people that I would bring jobs back, but there wasn't much to bring back from Tallahassee. We had budget deficits. There were no programs to bring back, so I came back and I started my very first job fair. And I've done it every year, and the job fair has grown this big. First of all, this last job fair, we have it usually in August of every year, but this job fair, we had 100 employers that participated. And the only requirement that we had of those employers was that they had jobs. Please come only if you're hiring. And so we had 100 employers there that were hiring. And we had a 4-hour job fair and had 1,000 people.
1,000 people?
1,000 people that came through the door seeking jobs. So when we look and we take a look and we say, or we hear people say that we're turning the page on this economy.
For some that's true, for others it's a long way off yet.
And
the book is long.
For my district, my working class folks, my working class families, my hardworking families, many of them are still looking for jobs. Mom may be working, but dad's out of work. Dad's working, mom's out of work.
Or they're working for substandard wages.
Correct. They took a job because they had to have some income, but they're looking. So we have employers that come from all ends of the spectrum. We have high-tech jobs, high-paying jobs to entry-level positions. There's something there for everyone. And I'm very proud of the fact that we have grown this to a gigantic job fair, and we plan to do it every year. So every year in August, we have a job fair. Call my office. Call my office if you're interested.
If you got a job for somebody or if you need one, right?
Correct.
Either case?
Yes, either case.
Do you have any statistics on the number of people that might have found jobs at the job fair?
We have a percentage of about 10% that leave the job fair with jobs.
Okay, so that's 100 people.
Yeah, many of the employers direct people to a website while they're there. They give them information. They direct them to a website. So our calculation and the best that we do about circling back is that we believe that an additional 10, almost 12% have jobs a month after the job fair because of the process. So we think we're at about 22% hires, and we're happy with that.
I think we really need to do it more than once a year then, if you can find 200 jobs for folks.
It's terrific. Honestly, I am very, very proud of the work that we do. I'm proud of, I have a staff of 2. I have Carlos Ramos in my office and Wendy Brill. He's terrific. He's a great kid. He's a great kid, and Wendy's been with me for a long time, but they're dedicated to this job fair, and they work for months. I mean, it's a lot of elbow grease. They're reaching out to employers, making phone calls saying, hey, we have this job fair. It's free to participate, but we need you there. Lots of organization that goes. Once we end session is March and April. So May and June and most of July, these guys are working full-time on organizing this job fair. It's terrific. It's really one of the best job fairs in the area.
We just talked about jobs, but let's talk a little bit about wages, because I know that's one of the things that's very near and dear to your heart.
I'm happy to talk about
that.
Let's talk
a little bit about equality of wages.
Okay, I'll tell you about a bill that is sponsored by Senator Arthenia Joyner and myself, and we named this bill after Senator Helen Gordon Davis, who was such an advocate for women's rights early on. She served in the House and in the Senate. So to honor her, we've named this bill after her, the Helen Gordon Davis Fair Pay Act. And essentially, all we're asking for, it's a very simple concept. Though complex, it's very simple. We're saying that we want equal pay for equal work. I want equal pay for my daughter. You should want equal pay for your wife. And that's what we're asking for. Honestly, in Florida, women make about 84 cents for every dollar that a man earns.
That's a little better than the national average, isn't it?
77% is the national average. If you're a Hispanic woman like me, then you earn 58 cents for every dollar that a man earns. And if you're an African American woman, you make only 62 cents.
You better not let the legislature know that, they may dock your pay.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, women make up nearly half of the nation's workforce. We're the sole breadwinners in 4 out of 10 households, yet we still are not paid equal. And let me tell you a little bit about how a bill is passed. An idea comes forth. Senator Jordan and I said, how about equal pay for equal work? So we file a bill. It goes into bill drafting. A bill has to have a Senate sponsor and a House sponsor, so that's Senator Joyner and myself together. We file the bills on both sides, on both the House and the Senate, and then based on its financial impact, based on its impact to the state, there are many, many factors. It gets assigned committees, different committees in the House and different committees in the Senate. And you have to go before every committee and state your bill, and then every committee member votes on that bill, and if it passes in that committee, it goes on to the next committee of reference. And once it meets all the committee of references and it's voted out of every committee, then it finally goes on the House so that all members vote on the bill. So you understand that it has to be agended on a committee in order for a bill to move. And a bill as simple as this concept, equal pay for equal work for women, I could not get this bill, even though I work well on both sides of the aisle, I couldn't get this bill agendaed in even one committee.
What's the objection? You're dealing with these people. What is the objection?
No one actually honestly says what the objection is. There were lots of, well, we'll think about it and we'll talk to you, but I think it's an economic impact. I think the objection is that people are worried that it would negatively impact businesses.
And we're only talking with your bill about people who are doing business with the state, correct? This is not a statewide thing.
Well, remember that as a legislator in the House of Representatives, our bills affect only those in the state. So the answer to that is yes. Any bills that we pass are state bills.
But only doing business with the state, correct?
Well, that's a beginning. That's, you know.
But that's what the original bill is.
Correct.
It doesn't mean the people doing business outside with other things in the state would have to pay that also, correct?
Right, right. And there's, you know, there's This same bill, you see some of this on a national level, and you see that if you poll people, it polls very high. Americans believe that there should be equal pay for equal work. People believe that women should be paid what men are paid in the workplace. But still, we continue the fight. I carry it on next year, and I'll carry it on every year until I someday pass this bill.
Well, you know, and that's the way things get done.
Right.
You build and build and build and build, and away it goes.
Exactly.
And this is you're going into, if assuming the election comes out the way you want it to, you'll be going to your third term.
That is correct.
How about taking a minute or two and talking directly to the people who might elect you or who have elected you, and assure them of anything you'd like to tell them?
Okay. Well, I'd like to tell you that I am honored and thankful, very, very thankful, to have been elected for this next term without opposition. No one ran against me. So after qualifying,
That says something right there.
it's nice. It's very nice, and it is I think one of the only times in this seat that someone has not been opposed, and I'm very, very honored. I'm honored by that. I feel like there is a message there, and that you folks are saying, I'm doing a good job, and I want you to know that I'm working very hard at it. I have more work to do. People ask me, how can you do this? It's so hard, and you know, we're such a house divided. But I tell them when I say that, because you know, I serve as a Democrat, and there are only 45 Democrats in the House out of 120 members. So we're definitely in the minority, but I tell people, I say, you know, when the people that were building Notre Dame began building Notre Dame, they knew that they would never be there long enough to worship in Notre Dame, but they were there, and they believed, and they worked on it. And so that's what I believe in. I believe that I'm building a foundation for those that come after me. I continue to work hard. Again, I'm thankful and I'm honored that I serve in the House of Representatives, and I believe that I am serving the people well.
What would you say in 30 seconds or less to someone who is a young person thinking about becoming involved in politics?
I would say, please join me. I just had lunch with an intern that started out as a page, and she called my office. She's a young girl from Jefferson High School. She called and said, I want to do the page program. I said, sure. And she paged for me, then she came back and she interned for me. And I'm convinced that this young woman, this ambitious, amazing young woman, will come back and run in my seat someday. So I say that we need more legislators. We need more women legislators. So please come, and feel free to come to my office and talk to me about that.
Which takes us right around to the beginning of lifting people up.
Yes.
We began talking about lifting people up. I'm Bill Hodges. This is Spotlight on Government. We have Representative Cruz with us today from House District 62 here in Florida. Thank you for being with us. Representative Cruz, thank you for being with us. You're unique, you're special, you're great. Tell yourself so often, because you are, you know. And we'll see you on the next Spotlight on Government. And again, thank you.
Thank you.